Paddock running away. Casey in pursuit. Paddock to Williams. The legend grows. Paddock to Williams. There are no flags.
And welcome to another edition of Keepin Orange and Blue. I'm Ryan Evan. We're bringing Riley O'Toole right in. Kevin, how was your weekend?
Well, hey, man, as a Bears fan and an Illini fan, I have rare weekends where everything goes right. And as a Bears fan, like other than maybe beating the Packers sometime this year would be really nice. The game I really wanted to win was the Panthers because that helps the Bears draft status because they have the Panthers #1 pick. And then to get that win, and my daughter, who never watches football with me, curled up with me right at the start of overtime. And just, I mean, when Paddock hit Williams there, we just started screaming and yelling and grabbing her, and she loved it. So maybe that will get her somewhat interested in watching a little bit of football with me. But it was, as a lifelong Illinois fan and going to games as early as 1983 when I was 3-4 years old. I watched John Wright Jr. play, and John Wright Jr. Was so special to me because there wasn't many kids. I mean, he's up there with like the Sam Ellsworths, the Mo Virgils, the Darren Boysaw, all the guys that were from right around Fred Wakefield, the guys who were right around Central Illinois. We didn't have a lot of them that made it to play for Illinois. My guy Zach Becker, he probably played with Riley a little bit. He might have had a little bit of crossover there. No, yeah. Zach, he was like 12 years old. But so for John Wright Jr.'s nephew, the kid to wear 4 because he's a 4th generation Wright, in essence, playing at Illinois, to come in and throw for 507 yards, second in school history, and have 2 phenomenal game-winning plays in back-to-back weeks. It's a little bit of it's a script Hollywood wouldn't let you write, and do it as a walk-on. It's just pretty freaking amazing, and it's a great story. And now we just got to figure out a way to continue it.
It's almost Rudy-esque, except he did start at Ball State last year.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say, to have such a family tradition, a bloodline of playing at Illinois, and to literally create your own legacy. That's what's crazy. I tweeted about it yesterday, is that he didn't come to Illinois guaranteed anything. He just wanted a chance to be on the team. And now at the end of the year, he's leaving his own legacy. I mean, the most yards ever by an Illinois quarterback in Memorial Stadium.
Yep. That's
John Paddock. You can't take that from him.
Yeah, because Dave Wilson threw his 621 in the shoe.
Yeah. Yeah, in the shoe. Nice. Yeah, so it's nuts too. And to be able to say, hey, I'm helping this team who was 3-5, make a bowl game, which still needs to happen, but he's on the right track. And it just feels like, and Riley, I'm going to come to you now, and thank you for coming on, by the way, the second time. So thank you.
Yeah,
it just feels like he can do no wrong, really. The only thing he did, the bad snap, it looked like he was just trying to get rid of it, to get it out of bounds, and it just kind of fluttered. But I almost feel like every time he throws the ball, like it's going to be a completion, and it's just crazy to feel like. It just feels like this guy's just on the money, like he's slinging it around like Brett Favre. It just feels like he's got the magic touch right now. He's got the hot hand, and it's crazy to feel like he's been on the bench all year. But sometimes injuries happen to guys, and as you know, Riley, you got to step in and do your best to deliver and keep that same thing going. What's your take on this whole thing? And and how hard is it to do what John's doing? When you haven't played that much.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, just reflecting on the last 2 games, I think obviously 507 yards is incredible, but I am still more impressed with what happened at Minnesota. Just sitting for 95% of the game, 99% of the game, and you come in on 4th down, throw that, first down on your second completion, and then you just decide to throw like a 50-yard touchdown to win the game. And just from a mental standpoint, as I spent a lot of time as a backup quarterback, like it's extremely exhausting being a backup quarterback for those exact reasons, because you kind of always have to stay locked in both physically and mentally, because you are one play away. But when you get down to the end of the game, to still be locked in mentally and physically, to come in and just kind of have 3 perfect plays is probably one of the more impressive things that I've seen, just because I've been in that position. And I tell the story quite a bit. In my senior year, 2014, we played Purdue. I think like Mikey Dudek had like 250 yards receiving that game, and it was really cold, and Wes ended up like breaking his leg, and I went in. My first play in, adrenaline was running, and I threw like a good pass across the middle to Martez Barr. And then the second play, once my nerves calmed down, I threw one like 5 yards directly into the ground because the cold had caught up to me. And so maybe John's nerves or adrenaline was running for that whole series. But I've been in that position, and definitely did not succeed like John has. So much respect to him.
Hey, you don't sell yourself short. We went over this last year. Okay. James Franklin's first year at Penn State, this guy right here led Illinois to a victory. Okay. And you did. You drove the team down in a nasty conditions and helped win that game. So give yourself David Reisner gets a little credit, but you get more credit. So don't sell yourself short. So that's one good thing you had on tonight.
I won't.
All right. I know you still tell everybody that. You're like, the 2014 that was supposed to be.
No, I prefer the 147 against Northwestern, but hey, who's counting here?
Yes.
So.
Yep.
Yeah. Not quite 507, but hey, John's one-dimensional. That's all we gotta say.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, hey, double threat guy. Double threat.
Hey, I'm drafting Riley on my basketball team over John too. I don't care. I've never seen John shoot hoops, but I'll take Riley on my team.
And I will say, while we're in the mood to talk, we're talking about quarterbacks real quick. Shout out Tommy DeVito, 2 touchdowns against the Cowboys today. And you know what?
He's alive. That's all we're thankful for.
He's living. Yeah, he's in one piece. It's been very unfair to him in a degree that he took over against the Jets of what I mean, like, and he gets thrown into the Jets in like a torrential downpour. Then he got a full chance to play better against the Raiders, and then your first start against the Cowboys. But he has persevered, and he's impressed me. Even though he may not be a starting quarterback in the NFL, I think he's shown he could be a serviceable backup for somebody. So definitely.
Hey Riley, I want to harken back to something here, brother, and I'm not just trying to gas you up here. But you had a little bit of a situation like this in 2012, your sophomore year. Nate Shieldhouse is hurt. Your good friend, your buddy for life, and you come in and against Charleston Southern and throw 5 touchdown passes in a game at Memorial Stadium. I think still it's tied for second most touchdown passes in a game by an Illinois quarterback in history. So like Paddock, you might not have had 507 yards, but you had 5 touchdowns. Was there any talk like what proceeded after that? I mean, you had a great game there. It was Nate's team up to that point and continued to be. Was there talk of? I mean, was there dissension in the locker room? How does the team handle something like this from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I think from that specific example, I mean, I also had Arizona State that year. That was not as pretty of a game.
Was that the one in Tempe? Was that in Tempe?
I was in Tempe, yeah.
Yeah, that was a rough night.
I think I was like 12 for 16 for like 60 yards. Got sacked quite a bit. But I think that was before Charleston Southern. So I would imagine coaches probably already had their minds made up that once Nate was healthy, and then just watching Charleston Southern on film probably felt pretty good with me going out there. But just to reminisce, and just thinking about the argument for who to start next week, and I've kind of been on both sides of this, not to start per se, but I remember being a true freshman coming in, Paul Petrino and Jeff Brom telling me, "Oh, you're going to get the first series in the second quarter or the third series of the game," and I mean, you take their word for it. And that year was our 6-0 year, right? So a lot of times Nate we'd be rolling, So it's kind of like we told our true freshman quarterback that we're going to get him in the third series of the game, but we've gotten 2 touchdowns. Do you go back in your word, or do you just kind of roll because it's in the best interest of the team, So, and then also my senior year, we play Penn State, and I go and we play pretty well, and we win, and we have Northwestern the next week, and then the coaches kind of have a tough decision. Do we go back to West now that he's healthy, or do we roll with the hot hand? So, tough position for the coaches to be in. I feel like I've kind of been on both sides, and I understand both sides to it. Some coaches had the philosophy of injuries shouldn't necessarily cost you your starting position, but also at the same time, coaches that have to coach for their job too, right? So.
And Kev, I'm not sure what your take is on it, but I put it out there. That's what I use social media for. I mean, I like to gauge other people's interests as well too. Is that, to me, maybe lightning in a bottle is how I phrased it earlier, but I feel like with what we've seen from him through the last 4 quarters and a drive, I feel like Illinois could use that against Iowa. I think especially with not knowing, Caden Fegan's status, even though tomorrow Brett's going to let everybody know that, but his arm didn't look really good coming off the field. You're going to have Reggie Love probably be the only 100% healthy back, if he's even 100% still. And you're going to need to be able to move you're not running the ball on them. And yes, they have a very good secondary, but to me, you got to have a guy who's confidently slinging it around out there, who's got nothing to lose and super confident. And I think that Paddock has shown that. And the receiver, he seems to have a very good rapport with the receivers too. You can't even really tell, that he hasn't even practiced really with the first team for weeks. He said that he hadn't even thrown to some of those guys in a month, but you can't tell that. And to me, I feel like taking that away right now, while I love Luke, I think he's, definitely going to be the quarterback for the next couple of years, but I think you just got to roll with Paddock to me and see how it goes, because I think he's shown you that what he can do and win you big games. And that's going to have to happen against Iowa. I don't think Luke running for a few first downs and, picking up 50 yards, is going to be much more important than a guy who can show you he can put up 500 if he had to, even though he's not going to do that against Iowa. But that's just how I feel about it, Kev. I feel like you're taking away this lightning, this success, this mojo, and saying, hey, I hope you can continue this from a couple weeks ago, Luke. That's how I feel about it.
I'll tell you how I feel about it. I'm glad I'm not Brett Bielema or Barry Lundy Jr., right? Like, let's just be real here. You got your starting quarterback who you swayed and presented something to him to come to the University of Illinois to be a starter. And then you've got another guy who came here and said, hey, man, I don't even need to take scholarship, and I'm going to come here. And then you've got Luke Altmaier, who since the Penn State game is completed 65% of his passes, 10 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, with a over 65% completion ratio, right? So it's not like Luke Altmaier was playing bad. Like, we can look at the games that Illinois has lost this season, and the reason why we've lost those games is we're scoring, I think, enough points in the Big Ten West to win games. Is the defense has let us down, and the defense let us down on Saturday as well. I mean, the only reason why Paddock has to throw for 507 yards is because Indiana hangs 45 points on us. And I think it's a little, and that's why I kind of referenced it a little bit. And I'm not comparing Indiana to Charleston Southern here, but there were a lot of blown coverages and blown assignments on the Indiana side of the ball. The left guy's wide open. I mean, the pass to Williams, the first long pass he had to Williams, he throws it behind him. If he leads one, he's probably scoring there, right? And I'm not. Hey, listen, complete the pass. Like, Riley knows this as well as anybody. You got a wide open guy. Like, do not overthrow him, man. Just make sure you complete the pass. And I'm really happy with that. The one thing that Paddock is doing that I haven't seen so much out of Altmaier, and I don't know if it's situational. There's 2 things. Number one, he's hitting receivers in stride. So it's giving them a huge opportunity to get a yak. We had a ton of yak. Pat Bryant had a lot. Isaiah had a ton. Casey Washington even had a little bit, right? And the reason for that is because when you hit a wide receiver in stride, it gives them much more opportunity to go ahead and keep moving at speed and make a couple moves. That was more, I mean, obviously it's the most yak we've had all year, but I mean, we had more yak in the first half than I think we've had all year. And I don't know if that's Indiana. I don't know I think it's a combination of Indiana. It's a combination of Paddock hitting guys in stride. The other aspect of this that's got me a little bit worried, and like I said, I'm really glad I'm not Brett or Barry here, is either Indiana's pass rush just took the week off, or our offensive line decided that they were going to ball out, because John Paddock was under no pressure. I think he got sacked once, and he had plenty of time there, and I think it was more of a coverage sack. And he was trying to scramble around, ran into a sack. You know, Luke's challenge for me, and I've been frustrated with it, but it's because he's been hit so much, is that he's dropping his head when pressure comes. And he's not keeping his eyes down the field. And I've always felt like, well, is that our receivers not getting separation? Is it because he's been hit so much? So there's the challenge. You're going to face a very good pass rush in Iowa. But, Ryan, you alluded to something here. You're not going to be able to just hand the ball to 3 this game, or 23, and just be able to grind out and get yourself into 2nd and 6 and 3rd and 2s here, because it's really not going to work against that stingy defense. Having Luke's legs could be really critical to our ability to move the ball. So I think it's a very tough decision. I do want to say this. I've been on the socials. I've been on the boards. I've been all around here. Like, I've heard people say, oh, we finally have a quarterback. I'm like, what are we talking about, folks? We finally have a quarterback. He's 5th in the conference in yards. He's 5th in the conference in touchdown passes. He's 5th in the conference in efficiency. He's 5th in everything in the Big Ten. In his first year as a starting quarterback, Luke Altmaier has performed really well. And if you take away the 4 interceptions against Penn State, his numbers look fantastic. So, and by the way, we finally have a quarterback. I'm sorry, we already talked about it today. We got a guy starting in the NFL today who completed like 70-some% of his passes last year, led the conference in completion percentage. So I'm sorry that this isn't, well, maybe C.J. Stroud was better, but he was like, I think he was 2nd. But like, we have a good quarterback. So we can talk about John Paddock and what he's done and be so impressed with him. And just like Riley said, his ability to come in the Minnesota game cold and do what he did is unbelievable. 507 yards is a record he'll have for a long time. Most yards passing in Memorial Stadium. We can compliment one guy without disparaging the other guy. And Luke Altmaier has been pretty damn good this year. So that's why I keep going back to it. It's a very tough decision for the coaching staff. Yeah. But I will say this. There does seem to be some juice on the sideline with Ford. Like, he just seems to have a little bit more the intangibles of the leadership, of the mastery of the offense. I don't know what it is. But hey, you know what? If Luke's healthy, play them both.
Yep.
Play them both. Get creative.
I think this is my prediction is I think they roll with Luke and just give him an extremely short leash and goes out there, see what he can do with his legs. Iowa historically plays cover 2 man on 3rd downs. They get pretty exotic with their blitz. That is a recipe for quarterback being able to pull down and run. So we get in 3rd and medium to long. If you get a man defense and you have a quarterback that can run, I mean, you can pick up a lot of yards with a lot of first downs with your legs. So I could see them rolling with Altmaier, but kind of getting him having him on a short leash. And
does he let it hang out if that's the case, Riley? I mean, I think he's probably been a little tentative. I think our average yards what they call ADOT in the NFL, they always talk about that, like average distance of the ball thrown. Like we seem like we threw the ball downfield more on Saturday than we have all year. Do you think that's Paddock letting it rip? And if you're Altmaier and you come in, are you letting it rip? Are you playing a little bit more free in that case?
Probably not.
Okay, not with that secondary.
Yeah, but like, to your point earlier, I think just watching the game, it really seemed like, and I was excited to just kind of see a quarterback take what the defense is giving him. Easy hitches, easy out routes to Isaiah, just get 5 yards, and I think John did a really good job of that. And I don't know if we're not calling that against other teams, or to your point, Kevin, is Indiana just secondary and pass rush a little bit weaker than maybe some other teams in the Big Ten, to where that was exposed. Nonetheless, 507 yards against any team is impressive. So he was certainly doing something right. But I do think the receiver's a little bit more open than usual, having time to be able to get down the field and kind of let that thing loose. So it's a combination of everything, but I think it would be interesting to see what the decision is. But also, it is kind of nice to have two good options.
And
a good place.
13 being healthy. 13 being healthy would help. Obviously, really hope Pat Bryant is healthy enough to play, because that'd be huge. He showed that unique ability to run after the catch that we haven't seen all year, really.
One thing I will say is I know Paddock's going to let it all hang out. I know if he's in the game. That's the thing. That's why I'm just telling you. I'm thinking maybe differently than a coach would per se, but just from watching, you already know what Paddock's going to do. I don't think any moment's going to be too big for him. I don't think he's going to worry about how many years it's been since Illinois won in Iowa City. I don't think he's going to think about, well, if we win this game, we could potentially set ourselves up to win the West, with all this other crap going on. He's not going to sit back and say, if I have a bad game, will I be the starter against Northwestern? To me, I think he can be a lot more freer than Luke, because Luke knows, wow, I got this guy right here who's just slinging it all over the yard, not worrying about things, setting records. I just feel like Paddock's going to have a whole lot less worry, stress to just be himself and to make the big plays. And also, one thing I also saw was, and I'm just as big a fan as Luke is Kevin. And if anybody watching the show knows, we've defended Luke and been super impressed with him, even, especially coming back after the Penn State game and being 10 touchdowns and 3 interceptions, averaging 220 passing yards a game and still, 40 to 50 rushing yards a game is impressive. I think that having Paddock, to me, is just you can just feel like he's just free and easy with it, and that's what I would go. But again, I think it'd be okay to see them both. Like, how about you bring out Paddock, and then on maybe a 3rd and short, right? You can bring in Luke in those situations, because he can pull the ball down. You know what I mean? Like, he can run it. I feel like would that be a problem if they just played both throughout the game?
Yes.
Well, I don't think Altmaier is the guy you really call quarterback run. He's not Aaron Bailey back there who can run dudes over and run around. I don't know if his frame allows for quarterback run against the Iowa defense, but
I mean, at least on 3rd and 2, Luke could still pull this, and the guys aren't just going to crash in on Love the entire game like we saw Indiana doing. Indiana knew, like, when it was the option, it was just going to be Love or whoever.
The read option is definitely more prevalent with 9.
Yeah, the read option. That's what I meant. The read option.
The one question that could squelch all of this is that we're pretty confident it's a concussion, right? We saw the hit against Minnesota. Head hit the ground pretty hard. I mean, I watched Roschon Johnson for the Bears be out 3 weeks with a concussion. I don't know. I mean, will Luke be okay? Will Luke be ready to play? And if I think it's, and if he's not, even if he's cleared and he's still got a little bit of brain fog, maybe you do roll with Paddock. But it's going to be an interesting situation here. And Ryan, you mentioned something. I had to go look it up. I wasn't aware. We haven't beat Iowa and Iowa City since 1999. 1999, Ron Turner beat Kirk Ferentz.
Neil Rackers had a big game.
40-24.
Yeah.
I got some Neil Rackers stories for you if you want some.
No story will beat the Heart of Dallas Bowl practice stories from Riley.
It's Chase Crouch.
Yeah, nothing will beat that. But yeah, it's been a long time. It's been I was 12 the last time Illinois won in Iowa City, so I'm hoping they can get that mojo back. And come on now, Iowa's favorite son, Brett Bielema's got to be the one to do it. He's got to be the one to do it. I think he will be the one to do it. I mean, I feel very confident. Maybe may not be this year, but it's coming.
So from a psyche standpoint, Riley, you think that here you are. This has been Luke's team all year. If he's cleared to go, and they start Paddock, is that a psyche detriment to him, or how does he handle that? I mean, you think put yourself in those shoes. What are you thinking there?
Yeah, obviously disappointment, you know, but also, I mean, you see someone do what John's done the past game in one series. I don't think you can really kind of be all up in arms with any decision. So I think if you're Luke, I mean, that'd be a sign of a good leader if you stay locked in and root for John and be happy for him. You know, it's just such a cool story. So I don't know Luke. I've never met him, but he seems like a really good guy. I've talked to some guys on the staff. They say he's an awesome guy. Everyone likes him. So I would not be surprised to hear Luke, if they roll with John, for Luke to kind of be his biggest fan and rooting him on, and ultimately just wanting what's best for the team. Another thing, Deuce, I think to your point earlier, maybe if Luke is even 90%, maybe they say, you know what, sit this one out. Let's roll with John. Let's get you healthy for Northwestern. You know, I don't know. And
we
well, he is our future. You know, that's the other thing.
Kind of an easy way out.
Yeah, he's our future. So it's a little unique in that regard. Is that this team is built around Luke Altmaier for the future. So that it's a like I said, I don't envy Brett or Coach Lunny here at all.
That's a great point. They could use that though and say, hey, we want him mentally ready to go for Northwestern or whatever lies ahead if he's not 100% with the concussion, especially knowing that whoever's the quarterback against Iowa is going to see the floor probably a few times. So that's a good one. But we do petitions around here, and we're going to get to one of them for Casey Washington, by the way. Casey Washington for 6 for 14. What wasn't that the petition, Kev?
Yes, it was. Absolutely.
Casey Washington got his touchdown. We should do a petition for Riley to be the honorary captain against Northwestern. I think you could rally the troops and get them ready to go. I think have they asked you to come back at all just to do anything fun like that? Not even captain, but to come back and do signing autographs and tents or anything like that.
No, they have not asked. I was back for homecoming, so that was fun. But Kevin Mitchell does a really good job with the alumni network. He's doing a really good job. Yeah. And I think it's just fun having someone like him kind of being boots on the ground and being active and being getting people excited to come back. So I'm looking forward to being back more consistently, but I think that would be a lot of fun.
I mean,
might have to talk about my Thanksgiving plans, but I think that'd be a fun reason to get back.
Oh yeah.
I'll be there. So if you want to come, we get to hang out again, my friend. I would love it. So
yeah, I'd love to drink a couple more beers than you do.
Yeah. Oh, there we go. So Kev, how should we take the 29.5 point spread though? Like they just had 28.5 with Rutgers. They had 29.5 the week before against Northwestern, which was like the lowest ever. So basically they think that no matter what's happened recently, that Illinois' offense just stinks and that there's no way they're going to score more than 10 to 12 points.
Hey, dude, I'm telling you, if we tackle like we did on Saturday against Iowa, they're going to score 35 themselves, dude. Like, that's the major problem. Like, it doesn't matter who plays quarterback. If that defense plays like it did on Saturday, it's not going to matter. Because Iowa is going to run the ball. They're going to be physical up front. And if we can't tackle a quarterback. You can't tackle Sorsby. How are you going to tackle the backs out of the backfield for Iowa? So Illinois needs to figure some things out on that side of the ball. There needs to be some come to Jesus meetings, spitting on players. I'm like, what in the world are we doing now? Like, dude, they need to clean. Like, we're burying the lead here. The defense was dog shit. And I hate to say it because Aaron's my boy. We know this. Like, and I have confidence that he can right the ship. But they've got to figure some things out. I don't know what happened to that defense on Saturday. That's the worst the defense looked all year by far. But I do want to talk one more thing here before we move completely into that. Riley, you talked about this, like educate us simpletons who don't truly understand the game at the level that you do in that big brain of yours or just big head.
Both. Head so big, had to make room.
How do you attack as a quarterback from your quarterback mindset? How do you attack that cover 2 man that Iowa runs, and why are they so effective? What makes them so good on defense? Obviously, they've got a lot of talent over there, but what makes them so good on that side of the ball?
Yeah, so their defense, they run the same. They ran the same defense, and they probably still run the same defense from when I was in school. But they're just extremely sound. You know, they don't disguise a whole lot, and they don't bring a ton of exotic blitzes, but they're just really stinking good at what they do. They want to get you in 3rd and long, so when they do that man, which you can beat it up, but you have to have time because they do stunts with the D line. So they'll twist, they'll do games, and then they'll bring some linebacker pressure. So really, they're just banking on their DBs getting in the wide receiver's chest and beating them up, and then that their 5 or 6 guys get home before you can get the pass off. So, I mean, it's going to be a tough test because I don't think our O-line pass protection wise has been fantastic this year, but you're going to have to give a little bit more time and do some rub routes, do some pick plays, take some shots. You know,
does the screen game work against them in that format? Like when they get exotic there, or no?
It can. A lot of times when you get exotic like that, they kind of just stunt, and because the O-line, you need to get a little bit of hand on those guys so they're not just running free. You know, so running screens against blitzes a lot of times is pretty good. But you just have to be able to get it off.
The challenge is if you're running man blitz, right, and somebody's picking up that back out of the backfield and can squelch it out before you even get it going, correct?
Yeah, right.
I'm trying to think last year's game was literally just like, I'm thinking, how did Illinois have success last year? Well, defensively, defensively, we just didn't let them do anything, even when, you know, Artur Sitkowski turned the ball over on the goal line. And they still stopped them once without any points and then once a field goal. You know, when you have
last year, just Sidney Brown versus Sam Laporta, like all, you know, it was a great battle to watch 2 future NFL guys.
That's crazy. It is crazy to see how good Laporta's been. He's on my fantasy team, and I'm not afraid to say that. But it's crazy to think of that matchup and what we were watching last year, you know, and even having Johnny Newton this year being a top 10 pick probably, and seeing Devin Witherspoon dominate. It was crazy just to see how much talent out there. A 9-6 ball game. But, I mean, DeVito, when he was in the game last year, was moving the ball. I mean,
yep.
You remember when before DeVito got hurt, like I remember we moved the ball into their territory twice, I think.
Well, that honestly was the game when DeVito got banged up there. You look at the rest of the season, the designed runs for Tommy DeVito almost went out the window. And I think Barry was like, hey, listen, we cannot risk this guy at this point in time. And that's what I've said all year. I thought Illinois was probably a little bit more confident in John Paddock than we knew because of the amount that we have been running Altmaier, and that Barry Lunny has been more aggressive with that quarterback zone read, right? And those are the guys that we're recruiting. Trey Petty can run that. Cal Swanson certainly watched the kid, saw him live, shook his hand. Like he can run that. The kid can freaking fly. So that's kind of what I think Barry Lundy wants from his quarterbacks, and he just refrained from it a little bit with DeVito. So after that game, because there wasn't a lot of confidence in Art after that game. Unfair to Art being against Iowa.
I'm getting some people on our YouTube channel asking some questions and talking. I told them, hell, feel free to ask Riley some questions if you want. And Greg Helton's got one for you. What was your most memorable game for the Beloved and why?
So I've answered this. So there's not a ton to choose from, but obviously Penn State sticks out. Senior day, there was like 5,000 fans there. I didn't start that game. Yep. I think I heard Deuce start some O'Toole chants before we became best friends. But the Northwestern game. But funny story. So Minnesota, my senior year, homecoming, we wore I think first time we wore those gray uniforms.
Gray Ghost.
Yeah. So that one's extremely memorable, and I'll tell you just a little bit of story as to why. So my wife played soccer at Illinois, and she's from Michigan. We started dating my senior year, and so soccer is a fall sport as well. So they didn't come to a ton of our games because usually they play Friday night and Sunday. So anyways, her family was in town. They went and watched her play Friday. The soccer team had morning practice Saturday. So her family was at the game, and Alina shows up like halfway through the second quarter, or maybe halfway through the first quarter. We got off to a good start that game. Anyways, she sits down and she goes, "Oh, hey, I think this is a good time to tell you I'm dating number 4 for Illinois." And like her family freaked out because if you remember that game, like we got off to a really good start. I threw a touchdown pass to John Davis and then ran one in shortly after that. So like could not have started any better. So naturally, the first time her parents knew that we were dating, I was like having a career game. But I joked to my in-laws now because I was like, I played in 35 career games. If you came to like 32 other ones, you probably would have saw me get my butt whooped, fumble, or throw an interception. So it was that's definitely the most memorable, just because that was like kind of what are the odds. My in-laws probably think I'm cool now or something.
Hey, you ran the ball effectively that game. You were lowering the shoulder into people on that day, buddy. Like so.
Yeah. I didn't like the slide. Didn't like the slide.
That was a fun game. That was the D'Angelo Bentley fumble return touchdown, right?
Yeah, we got out in the front and they hit 21 on us in the third quarter. It felt like it was falling apart on us, and then Bentley picked that up and ran that in. It was a big play.
That win right there really, I think, was the real propeller to the bowl game. I mean, obviously
David Cobb fumble.
Yep, that was a big one because that was a good Minnesota team.
They were 6-1 going in that game.
Yep, they were ranked
4th. Yeah, Jerry Kill always had them pretty good. So back to that. I mean, I assume Riley, you want to stay on till we finish. I'm not trying to talk about anything else other than Riley, but I figure he likes to talk about other stuff too for a little bit. But we basically the line just surprised me. That's the main reason I brought it up, because Northwestern and Rutgers, similar lines, 29.5. Like that's basically saying like that Illinois' offense is going to do 10 to 12, 13 points probably is what they're saying. And 6 points favorite. So what do you make of that? That just basically because no matter what, Iowa seems to be in these 10 to 7. I look at the 15 to 6, 10 to 7. I know 22-0 over Rutgers, which was surprising, and not just because Iowa scored 22, but because Rutgers literally didn't do anything. I just felt like they tried the same thing all game and didn't try to mix anything up. So what do you make of this, Kevin?
I think it's fair. I think honestly, you're looking at. I mean, if it's not the best defense we played this year, I mean, the only other team you could compare to is Penn State. I think Illinois has shown the propensity to allow our quarterbacks to get hit. Riley already talked about that, and that's going to be a challenge. Like we've got to keep the quarterbacks upright. We got to do some quick reads. And one of the things that Iowa does better than any team in the country for the past decade plus is pick the ball off. And furthermore, when they pick the ball off, they like to run it back for a touchdown. They've done, I mean, as a matter of fact, in their 2 losses, the one guy's got a pick 6. It's funny. And he almost had one against Rutgers and took it down to like the 10-yard line. And that's what set up their last touchdown to take the lead 22-0. The way that they're able to score is that their defense and special teams sets them up in such advantageous positions. Cooper DeJean's probably the best punt returner in the country. If you don't believe me, just go watch the punt return against Minnesota. That should have been a touchdown. This team should be 9-1. I think that was a BS call, and you'll never, ever hear me advocate for Iowa. I think this number's fair. I think that it's a whole new ball of wax going to play Indiana compared to playing Iowa. And you can't look at a team that scored 48 points against Indiana and say, oh, well, they're going to score against Iowa. We're going to have our work cut out for us. And I keep going back to it. The defense has got to do something better than what they showed. We made Cali McManus look really good. He had some really good numbers against us. Now the guy said his name earlier. Indiana's quarterback Sorsby. We made him look really good. We made the kid from Wisconsin look really good. Like, this defense is not like. I'm sorry, but if we're going to allow Iowa to score 2 or 3 times on offense, we're not going to win the ball game. And I'm talking about touchdowns here. So the defense has to figure out a way to fix something. But at the same time, I think that this defensive scheme is built better for what Iowa and Wisconsin like to do than just about anybody else, and they're very vanilla. Riley talked about what they do on defense, the same thing they're going to do on defense. Well, good for them, because that's worked for 20 years. They're going to do the same thing on offense that they've done on offense for 20 years, and I'm sorry that hasn't worked for the last decade. So hopefully we can find a way, and we have not. Robert Ruffy talks about this. Rosenthal talks about this all the time. He calls it the turnover game. There's going to be there's going to be the one game in a season where all of a sudden you win the turnover battle 5-1, 4-1. We haven't had that all year. Maybe that's Saturday, because that would be really helpful for us. The one thing that's looking in our favor is, I just looked it up. The weather conditions in Iowa City look perfect for middle of November. I mean, high of almost 60, sunny. The one thing you wouldn't want here is to really hamper our offense with a ton of wind or rain. And obviously it's Sunday, right? We still got a week, so that can change. But you knock on wood and pray that you got some good weather involved there, because that could really hurt us. If this becomes the Ohio State game of Riley's senior year, when we're 6-0 and they come to the house and we can't throw because the wind is just chucking the ball all over the place, and we become one-dimensional, it becomes really, really difficult. I don't think we got a chance.
That was Riley's freshman year, wasn't it?
Yeah, the 6-0 freshman year. Sorry, yeah, Nate's sophomore year. Sorry, My apologies. I inverted him.
Yep, I think Luke Fickell was coaching that game. He took over, I think, for some reason midway through. But I was thinking, Riley, your take though on this as well. But the special teams can't be that bad either, because Illinois' special teams was terrible against Indiana.
Kick the return for a touchdown on a stupid holding penalty. Yeah,
and that's what I meant though. Tip Ryman didn't even need to do any of that. The guy was literally even with him at the moment before he touched him. Yeah. Go back and watch the replay of it, and you'll see he didn't even. Yeah, just get your body in front of him, and he has to push into you. Wilcher's already out of there, but not just that, but then how many returns of 20, 30 yards did Indiana have? I think they had 2 or 3 of them.
Well, they had one that was going to go to the house and then got a penalty called. So it was
and then the punt coverage was just awful. Like, what was the one? Hugh Robertson held it for like 4 seconds.
Hey, I don't care. Like, against Iowa, I don't care about the distance that Hugh Robertson kicks the ball. Just kick it out of bounds. Kick it 30 yards out of bounds. It doesn't matter. Do not let 3 touch the ball. Don't let him touch the awareness just has to be better, because it was terrible against Indiana. So is Devin Hester good at returning punts? Don't let him touch the ball.
Yeah. Well, Riley, obviously Illinois has to score to beat Iowa. And your take on the line, you think 29.5 is pretty fair?
Yeah, I think so. I wouldn't be surprised if Iowa breaks off a couple of chunk runs just from our history of poor tackling if they get to that second level, and like Kevin said, their special teams they have the best punter in recent memory. So that, they just play, their style of play just fits for what they want to do. Obviously they'd like to score a little bit more offensively, but they probably think this line's way too high, They're totally fine with it. But I think, to your point, what's been frustrating is also the pass interferences last week against number 1 on Indiana. I was just like, they're just going to do this all the way down the field. That dude was 6'5", and he was just posting those dudes up, and they just felt like they were just hanging on for dear life and just getting called for pass interferences. It's especially in a game like that where we're struggling to get stops. It was so heartbreaking to just give free yards. I think that's another sneaky, frustrating thing about this team this year is how penalized we are, and kind of how unnecessary penalties as well, like avoidable penalties for the most part.
I know that's got to be driving Aaron Henry crazy, Kevin, about the guys getting their head around, and And
right.
I know,
You're right there. You're right there to make a play.
It's tough though to counter the only way you counter the length is with a guy like Zachary Toby, and that's a true freshman on their number one receiver right now. That's a tough ask, but maybe we should have went to it earlier. I don't know. One thing we have going for us is Iowa. I mean, I don't even know if their receivers catch the ball.
Yeah.
They got some dude number 3 who changed his number to number 3, so they got 2 number 3s. Like he actually made some plays a little bit, but they got a first touchdown to a wide receiver since early September in the game against Rutgers. So that will be a difference. It's just going to be able to stop their run game. That's going to be the key.
Yeah. Well, then also they just pound the rock, and historically they have like a number 89 dude like Van something that play action pass, and this dude's running wide open on a post route. So it's the back end needing to be disciplined when they've ran the ball 15 straight times just to set up that deep shot that they've been waiting for. So discipline, sticking with it, and making sure we don't give up those big chunk plays down the field. Because I mean, like we said, we don't know who any of the receivers are. I don't even know who their quarterback is. But if you do a play action pass and you're blocking with 8 dudes and you just have a 2-man route and someone's wide open, anyone can throw a 40-yard bomb to someone that's wide open. So
they've been snake bitten by injuries. Eric All transferred from Michigan to be with Cade McNamara. Both of those guys lost for the year with like torn ACLs.
Yeah.
They also lost their other number 1 tight end, so they're ailing terribly. Deacon Hill's their starting quarterback, who was a transfer from Wisconsin. So that's the only thing going in the favor of Illinois' defense right now is that Deacon Hill is very turnover prone. He likes to overthrow a lot. And the way that I've noticed Iowa's moved the ball for the most part, the only way they really moved it on Wisconsin is they got a big 80-yard touchdown run on Wisconsin. That's it. Other than that, they scored 3 field goals, and they didn't even move the ball well at all on Minnesota. They got some touchdown off of a turnover in the red zone, and then a field goal.
Hill had a pick 6 in that game, and Hill was 10 for 28 in that game. I mean, bad. And he's been sacked 11 times. He hasn't played all that many games, 144 attempts. He's been sacked 11 times. So that's something that Illinois is going to have to find a way to generate some pressure. And like I said, maybe this is the turnover game. They got Williams as their key back, a Chicago kid. He ripped off, I believe, that 80-yarder against Wisconsin, 82-yarder that set that up. Illinois, it's the same way. You don't always want to beat Iowa. You're going to have to be able to run the ball. You have to be able to stop the run. There's nothing new here. And if we're able to do that, we can stay in this game and hope that Deacon Hill makes a mistake, because we got 2 better quarterbacks on our sideline. I think we got 3 better quarterbacks. We have 4 better quarterbacks on our sideline. I really believe that. So
before we make our predictions, because Riley, I want you to be a part of it. Last question, real quick: is Brett Bielema the guy, in your opinion, to turn this into a consistent winning program?
Me first?
Yeah, no. This is for you.
Oh, yeah. No, I absolutely do. I think. I mean, just look. I mean, when I was playing, I think Kevin, maybe, or one of you guys might have tweeted something about the last 3 or 4 games and how they've all been close and we're finding a ways to win. I was just reflecting on when I was playing. One, there were a lot of times where we weren't even within a couple possessions. Kind of getting, maybe we're close at halftime and we just get blown out in the second half, or if we do have a close game, we didn't find a way to win. I think he's doing that. Even in the losses, we're right there. We've had some tough losses the past couple of years. We're right there that, of course, you look back on, you beat Michigan and all that kind of stuff. But I absolutely think he's the right guy. I think he's doing it the right way. I think he's getting a good mix of transfer portal and recruiting. I think he's done a heck of a lot better recruiting the state of Illinois. And I truly think if we commit to him, where else is he going to go if he gets Illinois winning eight games next year, 10, whatever. If he starts winning 10 to 12 games, we're winning conference championships. Where else is he going to go? Is he going to? I can't see him going back to the SEC. I can't see another Big Ten job really jumping out at him, So I hope we ride with him, and hopefully he keeps it trending in the right direction. But I love like I said, I went up there for homecoming, got a tour of the place. Pat Hamilton, my guy, even popped into Bielema's office. It was just cool. He was open to letting me chat with him, and he remembered recruiting me, which maybe he made it up, but in my mind, it was cool,
He was still at Wisconsin in 2010, 2011.
Yep. Yep. Paul Christ, that whole thing. So I absolutely do. There's no bigger fan of Bielema than me. So
that's great to hear. I know me and Kevin are on that boat, and we both didn't. Kev, I think you told me. I know I wasn't really happy at first. Weren't you the same way?
Oh yeah, I was really pissed, and so I started digging in because I just remember the pompous jackwagon I thought he was at Wisconsin, and of course, a lot of that has to do with kicking our ass. And you know what, when Brett does beat you, I mean, he's not gonna dance around it. He's gonna tell you how it is. But then I watched his entire like program that they did on him when he was at Arkansas, and I saw somebody that I thought was a little bit different. And then also his first introductory press conference where he talked about how he'd grown up a lot and he had some of those arrogant issues that had affected him negatively at Arkansas. That to me just says, know thyself and just understanding who you are and where you need to go. So I'm in agreement with Riley. I know this year hasn't gone the way that we wanted, but this is the first time Illinois has won 5 games in 3 consecutive seasons since 2000 to 2002. Like this is not a program where you walk in and you win 8 games a year. Like we're not. Like I hate to say this, and Illinois fans might throw shade at me. We're not Minnesota even. Like we're not even on that level. Like we're not there yet. But I do think we can get there. And I think winning one of these last 2 games will be huge for that. Going back to bowl games is critical.
Definitely. That's this year, getting back-to-back bowl games and the extra month of practice, as you know, Riley, when you were there, is huge, especially for the younger guys, So it's not even really about winning the Big Ten West this year. It's just fun that that's still an option. It is. So with that said, we'll start out with you, Kev. We'll start out with you. I'll go, and then we'll let Riley go last with prediction for Iowa on Saturday. 2:30 kick, FS1. You said good weather right now. Line 6-point favorite for Iowa. What's your pick? What's your take on it?
I'm going to jump online. I'm going to get a same game parlay. I'm going to take the over and the Hawkeyes here, 2013 Iowa.
Ouch. All right. Okay. Hey, that's fine. That's fine though. I'm not necessarily taking an over or under, but I'm just gonna. I don't know. I think Paddock's gonna start, and I think he's gonna inspire more points than people are thinking out of Illinois. So I'm gonna say I think Illinois is gonna get it done, 17-14, and that's with my heart and my head. All right, Riley, what you got?
This is exactly why I'm a terrible bettor, because I always bet with my heart. But I'm going to go 2017 Illinois.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. And Kevin hopes he's wrong.
I love being wrong and when I pick against us. So
it's like just keep picking against us if Illinois keeps winning.
I will. I have no issues.
And one thing we didn't mention though, and I know it's wild about the run game, but with pressure too, I feel like Newton and Randolph, Coleman, Bryant, they're going to get a lot of pressure on to Hill, and whenever he gets a lot of that in his face, he doesn't handle it very well. And
you got to keep him in predictable passing downs. You got to keep him in 3rd and 6 or beyond. You got to get him in 2nd and 12s. You got to get him in that, because that's the only way you really are going to be able to apply pressure. And I completely agree with you. They don't have Sam Laporta. They don't have TJ Hawkinson. They don't have Noah Fant. They don't have Greg Kittle. They don't have all these guys that are making millions of dollars in the NFL at tight end right now. That 89 slipping out, they just don't have those guys.
They don't have that this year.
And they really don't have the AJ Epenesses or the Luke Van Nesses either. I mean, it's a really solid defense, but that's the way you're going to have to win this game. You're going to have to put them in predictable passing downs and make Deacon Hill beat you.
Yeah. Yep. And I think, Kevin, to your point earlier, I think this offense is better suited to, like, our defense is better suited to go against an offense like this. versus when we started the year, Toledo's quarterback and then Kansas's quarterback. Those dudes, if you make like they were juking, like Johnny Newton was getting home, but he was getting juked out of his shoes, and then Jalen Daniel was running and throwing a bomb or running for a first down. So I think the quarterbacks that maybe aren't as mobile. I mean, we made Drew Aller look extreme. I mean, he hasn't really looked great all year, but we made him look so pedestrian, in my opinion.
I agree.
He's not a mobile guy.
If we didn't give him all the short fields that we did by throwing 4 picks and fumbling, like we 6 turnovers.
I left that game like excited about the rest of the season because I was like, our defense finally stepped up, because the first 2 games I was like, oh gosh, our defense is not doing well, and then Penn State is like, okay, they finally put it together. But I think it was the quarterback mobility from those first 2 guys that I think really.
And if you think about until the last quarter against Wisconsin, and even when Newton came back in the second half against Minnesota, I think that's the type of game we're going to see. I mean, Newton was able to really just disrupt everything. And when Newton went out against Wisconsin, what happened? What happened when Newton wasn't playing in the first half against Minnesota? It's not the same team.
Right. Well, you hear it all the time. You get a guy like Newton, you have to double team him. So then it opens up Akis and Seth Coleman. It makes their jobs so much easier. I mean, you see it everywhere. Aaron Donald. I guarantee you, everyone on his D line loves when he plays, because they just have one-on-one things, one-on-one matchups.
Yeah, Leonard Floyd was a bust with the Bears until he goes to LA, and then he gets 10 sacks in the season because Aaron Donald. Yes, but I'll also say this. The one thing about Johnny Newton is Johnny Newton's best game all season was the first half against Wisconsin. His best full game, in my opinion, was at Penn State. He was the best player on the field in that Penn State game. I think there was something that motivated him in that game, with all the talk about Penn State and who Penn State was and all about their defense. And that's the best defense on the field. And I think Johnny Newton was fired up to do that. And maybe we see some of that in Iowa City on Saturday. I'm not saying that the guy doesn't bring it every week, because he absolutely freaking does. He had a great game against Indiana. It didn't have any help. It wasn't, and it was the secondary had their worst game. So we got to fix that. So we got our predictions in. Let's get one quick thing out there before we wrap up shop. We kept my man for an hour. Appreciate you so much, my brother, for coming on with us. But having mentioned your basketball prowess, Riley was a pretty damn good player in high school himself. What is
Don't put those 3 goggles on. Don't do it.
Dude, if I ever got switched and had to guard him when we played our Saturday morning pickup games, he'd just cook me, man. There's nothing I could do with that dude.
That's why we always try to be on the same team. You said the best picks.
I did. I was good. That's what I'm good at, brother. And I said a lot of them because I know what I'm good at. What have your thoughts on the basketball team so far? I know you still pay attention there. And then what's your thoughts? We got Marquette on Tuesday.
Yeah, I mean, I love the team. I'm always a glass half full fan. I'm always like, what's the point of being a pessimistic fan? But I think the transfer portal, bringing some older guys in, I think just from a confidence standpoint and just mindset, I think is going to be the big difference. I think leadership and mindset was kind of the
lacking.
Downfall. Yeah, the downfall of the team last year. Obviously, 3-point shooting, but I think just you got TSJ a year older, and Coleman Coleman Hawkins. I think he can't be the best player in the Big Ten one night and then like a eighth guy playing like an eighth guy in the rotation the next night. He just needs to be a lot more consistent, a lot more confident. I mean, I watched the Kansas game. When he's hitting shots, when TSJ's hitting shots, I mean, nobody can beat Illinois, but it's just, you can't have both those guys playing terribly. And if they do, I think we got some guys in the portal that can step up, that have some maturity, have some leadership. So I'm excited. I'm going to say Illinois 95, Marquette 88. Marquette, you didn't even ask me. So.
Yeah, there we go.
Hey, the one thing I saw from the game the other night against Oakland, and I know people look at this game and think it was a bad game, but it was tied like 48-48 and with like 8 minutes to go, I think, something like that. And I think the final score was 64-53. Like, there was no panic. There was no, like, there was this leadership. There was this calmness. There was this veteran presence. Like, there was zero panic in that team. They're like, nope, we're just going to continue to execute. And then, you know, the coaches made some changes. We put Terrence, Ant Wright did a great thing on Twitter where he showed where we put Terrence on their three-point shooter. That guy made some tough shots. And you watch the effort that he put in. It just, and Guerrier on their big man. And we just shut off their water. It was like, nope, you're just shutting off your water here. And I know people knock Coleman. Coleman had 8 points, 8 rebounds, and 5 assists. That's the Coleman we need. That guy to just do the little things. And then if he can knock down some shots, that'd be great. He took a 3 early, and I don't know if he took another one in the game. It'll be interesting for me to see what happens with Marquette. It's going to be a big game. It's going to be a loud crowd. I think you're going to see more of the Kansas atmosphere. I'm interested to see what we can do with Kolek. He's a quick guard. Does that mean that we have to play more DGL against him, or can a bigger player like Ty Rodgers potentially give him some troubles there? It'll be a very interesting game. I like your pick, Riley. I think it's a little bit high on the score. I'm going to say 74-73 Illini.
Nobody shoots all that well at the end of the season anyways. I was hoping for a long day at the foul line.
There you go.
I believe it's going to be the first top 4 team to be in the State Farm Center in the first few weeks of the year. And since Wake Forest in the 05 Final Four team. It's going to be a big one. You know, they might even be third once because
Michigan State will move out.
And Duke's going to move out. I think Arizona will move in the top 5, but I think you'll slide Marquette probably at 3. But still, big atmosphere, a lot at stake. This is going to be a huge win on the resume. The guys know that. But Coleman, even though I know what you're saying, Kev, I don't think Coleman would think he played well. I think he's wanting to play better. I think he definitely has been a nice presence to, help come in and take care of the ball at moments when, Ty Rodgers or Moretti or DGL can't. Harmon, it's a couple of guys you didn't mention were Domask and Harmon. So Domask and Harmon are 2 of those guys that they brought from the portal that have been a nice calming influence, especially Marcus when the scoring has been lacking, which what he did bring in the second half against Oakland until Guerrier finished it off. So the depth is the key to this team. I think they're deeper than Marquette. I know secret scrimmages don't matter, but Marquette, Michigan put up like 113 when they played. I think they're not going to be playing anywhere near the type of defense that Illinois is. I think Illinois is an elite defensive team. We've seen that early, I think. So I'm going to say – what'd you say, Kev?
The challenge here is does Shaka put full court press on us, and how well do we handle it without a traditional point guard? Yeah. I don't want to say a real point guard, but a traditional point guard.
Yes. I think there's going to be some ebbs and flows in that game. It's going to be a fun one. I'm going to say Illinois 75, Marquette 68. So I think Marquette's an elite team scoring, but this defense is at a level that they have not seen yet so far this year. So I think it's going to be a big win for Illinois. It's going to be a nerve-wracking one. I'm probably going to bite my nails a little bit, but I think they'll get it done. So with that said, Kev, before we get off here, any final thoughts for the week?
Hey, it's great to have a win, and it's great to have a story like John Paddock, and it's great to have a friend like Mr. Riley O'Toole who can drop some knowledge of what it's like to be a quarterback at this level. No, Riley, you're smiling here, and I'm not just kissing your ass because you're my homie, man, but like what you dropped some knowledge tonight, and we really appreciate you having on. As always, appreciate you, brother. And if I don't talk to you before, then have a great Thanksgiving, my friend.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on. Glad it worked out.
Yeah, we're glad to have you on.
One quick thing, John Smith. To the top. He hit me with a climb to glory. That was our unit motto when I was stationed at Fort Drum, 10th Mountain Division earlier in the show. So I didn't get a chance to climb to glory to the top. John. So happy Veterans Day to all those guys out there that served.
That's right. Happy Veterans Day. Thanks for coming on, Riley.
He's real excited about it. You can tell. Yeah. Man, you get choked up, that emotional about Riley coming on the show.
Appreciate you guys.
Swap me out.
ILL.
I. We'll see ya.
Oh, goodness gracious.